Welcome to the Imperfectly Empowered podcast with leading DIY lifestyle blogger ahnafulmer, where women are inspired with authentic stories and practical strategies to reclaim their hearts and homes by empowering transformation, one imperfect day at a time.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Imperfectly Empowered podcast. I am your host, ahnafulmer. Today, we are talking about why you need to stop counting calories and track macronutrients instead. Why you need to stop counting calories and track macronutrients instead. For decades, at least the majority of my lifetime, the health and wellness industry has told us to count calories. The message is this, that in order to lose weight and get fit, you need to live in a calorie deficit. Work off more calories than you eat, and boom, you lose weight. This concept is not incorrect, but I would argue that it is terribly and even dangerously incomplete. Anna, why, you might ask, is counting calories a problem? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Don't you love this one-way conversation we're having here? And this is the reason. This is the reason you need to stop counting calories alone, because calorie counting does not account for nutrient density. Let me say that again. Calorie counting does not account for nutrient density. Tracking and understanding nutrient density is the key to unlocking the power of food as a means of living well and losing fat. What is nutrient density and why does it matter? Let's unpack this a little bit and stay with me, because we are going to give you lots of incredible resources by the end of this podcast that you do not want to miss. Macronutrients are the basic building blocks of our total caloric intake: carbs, fats, and proteins. So let me start with something here. When we are talking about building blocks, we are going to unpack this one by one, or maybe I should say we will stack them one by one. But at the base of this nutritional pyramid, when we determine how to calculate your nutritional needs in order to live well and ultimately lose fat, the very bottom of this pyramid is caloric intake. I am not ignoring calories. I'm simply suggesting counting calories alone is a very insufficient and incomplete means of losing fat or weight. So the building block here at the base is total caloric intake. The step above that is breaking down those total calories into macronutrients. Those are the basic building blocks of your total caloric intake, broken down into three main groups: carbs, fats, and proteins. Micronutrients, however, are the layer above that yet. We then take those macronutrients, carbs, fats, and proteins, and we break them down even further into micronutrients. This is where calorie counting especially falls short. Let's break it down. In this hand, pretend I have a sweet potato. In the other hand, pretend I have a handful of pretzels. They are approximately the same amount of calories. They are also the same macronutrient. Those first two building blocks are equal. Same amount of calories approximately. They are also would both fall into the macronutrient that is carbohydrates, handful of pretzels and a sweet potato. But now let's assess their micronutrient density. Here is where it breaks down. Sweet potatoes contain beta carotene, vitamin C, potassium, manganese, vitamin B6, vitamin B5, vitamin E, fiber, chlorogenic acid, anthocyanins. Don't even ask me what that is, but I know it's important and the body likes it. I think that's a mineral. Don't even know. But the point is, very long list of things the body wants and needs to optimally function well. Now let's look at that handful of pretzels. If they have been enriched, they may have fiber, iron, zinc, and folate. Completely different micronutrient density. The point is this: tracking macronutrients and prioritizing nutrient density is a mindful approach to eating and a more effective method of sustainable fat loss. There is one key word there that I want you to understand. Sustainable fat loss. One of the reasons that it is more sustainable is that when you understand why you are fueling your body and what you are fueling it with, food becomes much less burdensome, and you learn how to, in fact, leverage what you are eating to live well, lean, fit, and well, as opposed to the deprivation mindset of counting calories. Let's chat, though. Let's rewind a little bit in that statement, and let's chat for a second about the idea of mindful eating. We've heard a lot about the idea of mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness. It was originally derived from a Buddhist concept, a form of meditation, the idea being you're fully engaged with an experience, including how you physically feel and emotionally perceive that experience in real time. In other words, being actively mindful of your present situation. So when we talk about mindful eating, the goal is to replace the autopilot approach to food that has been cultivated over time in our lives with a more conscientious and intentional approach. And this involves sort of actively changing our eating practices. These might include eating slowly and without distraction. I don't know about you, that's very hard to do as a mom of 3 very young children, but trying to figure out ways to incorporate that. Listening to physical hunger cues and eating only until you're full. There are various ways to change this habit. There's another podcast coming where I'm going to talk about, oh my goodness, I think it's almost 21 tips to prevent overeating. Learning how to only eat until you're full. That's coming. Stay tuned. Distinguishing between true hunger and non-hunger triggers for eating. Engaging your senses by noticing colors, smells, sounds, textures, and flavors. Learning to cope with guilt and anxiety about food. I talk with my clients about this concept a lot. Eating to maintain overall health and well-being. Noticing the effects food has on your feelings and figure. Appreciating your food. Or I would argue enjoying your food, because I fully believe food was meant to be enjoyed, not something to feel guilty about. So let's talk practically. In my life, one of the most beneficial changes I have made to incorporate this practice of mindful eating actually came about when I started to implement intermittent fasting into my life. This is a practice that we incorporate in my program, The Faster Way to Fat Loss with Anna. My clients learn how to incorporate the 16-8 method. I think this is for a lot of reasons, the most beneficial intermittent fasting practice. And I started this years ago, probably almost 5 years ago now, I believe, that I started intermittent fasting. And it means that I fast for 16 hours and I feed or I eat. My eating window is 8 hours. For me, I practice 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Zach primarily does 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. But when I changed this practice, one of the things that I noticed was how quickly I would eat food off of my kids' plates. I did it without even thinking about it. Breakfast was a great example. There might be a leftover sausage or half a pancake, and I would find myself just eating it right off of their plate. Well, when I started doing intermittent fasting, I had to force myself not to eat outside of my eating window, which meant not eating until 10 o'clock, where my kids usually would eat earlier in the morning. So one of the mindful eating concepts that really struck me, how many extra unnecessary calories I was putting in my body, especially because they were usually relatively empty calories, without even realizing it. And for me, it was eating leftovers off of my kids' plates. So one way I have combated that, even within my eating window, is if there's like one sausage left, for example, I will wrap up the plate with that one sausage and put it in the fridge. To be clear, if there's only 2 bites of the sausage left, I do not keep that. I know there's very hungry people in the world. I'm very well aware, but a couple bites, I don't keep that. But if there's a full pancake that isn't totally doused in syrup, I'll put that in the fridge. I've learned to stop just picking stuff off of my kids' plates and eating it is the point. Moms and dads both. This is a simple, sneaky way of preventing unnecessary extra calories, mindless calories that you are not intentionally thinking, how will this be fueling my body? Will this fuel my body in a way that is supporting lean, disease fighting muscle? Or is it just simply unnecessary calories? Don't eat leftovers off of your kids' plates. That is just one way of eliminating unnecessary calories from your diet and practicing mindful eating. Here's the thing though, I want you to take it a step further. Mindful eating is important. Yes, there are habits that you can implement into your life to be more intentional about your eating habits. But I like people to learn how to take it a step further. My clients, we go into depth with this, but I want people to be mindful of how what you are eating is actually fueling your body. Meaning, we're taking these macronutrients and trying to understand, how are they actually fueling my body? Why does my body need and optimally function with carbs? Y'all, don't be eliminating entire food groups from your diet. The body was meant to function optimally with carbs, but the right carbs at the right time for the right reason. So I want you to take it to the next level. I want you to start thinking how your body is physiologically responding to the food you're fueling it with and how this can power effective exercise or effective movement in your life to make you stronger and ultimately live a better quality of life. Let's start bridging the connection between what you are eating and why you are eating it. Let's talk about carbs. Carbs are the quick energy source you need to fulfill your day-to-day activities. Meaning this, carbs are the first go-to source of fuel that your body will reach for any day-to-day activity. Even just as you are sitting, as I'm sitting here talking, my body is demanding energy. It needs energy. The first energy source it is using is carbs. When we talk about carbohydrates, I want you to prioritize high nutrient density carbs. Let me be clear about something. I also talk to my clients about this. Low nutrient density carbs are not off the table. Low nutrient density carbs are not off the table, but you need to understand why you're eating what you're eating and the benefit of what you are eating. Start thinking about the carbs that you are putting into your body. I am going to list high nutrient density carbs that I encourage my clients to reach for first. Now, let me also say this. If you've not heard my podcast on whole food nutrition or read my blog post, whichever you prefer, I highly recommend that you look at it because I go into a lot of depth on what is the difference between natural food, organic food, artificial food. Does it make a difference? I can tell you this. Yes, I believe it does make a difference. And the bottom line is this, that I want you to avoid artificial ingredients and processed food. I want you to think natural food. If it is from the earth or it can give birth, it's probably fair game. There's a million versions of that quote. That's what I've said for years, natural foods. So just hear these food lists with that idea in mind. High nutrient density carbs that you should be reaching for first to fulfill your macronutrient goals. Apples, bananas, grapes, pineapples, kiwis, mangoes, oranges, raisins, dates, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew, dried mango, apple. I mean, really dried fruit in general. No added sugar, please. Applesauce, same idea. Try to avoid any added sugar. Yogurt, kidney beans, quinoa, rolled oats, brown rice, black beans, chickpeas, peas, broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, chickpea pasta, peas, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, corn, onion, green beans, Brussels sprouts, squash, peppers, snap peas. These would all be considered higher nutrient density carbs. Again, we want those micronutrients. We want to fuel our body with those micronutrients. We want more of them. Now let's talk about low nutrient density carbs. Again, these are all natural carbs. There is nothing wrong with eating these. The key is you want to reach for the high nutrient density first. These are still in our pantry. They just are not our go-to source of carbohydrates. So let's give some examples. Some of these literally are coming right out of our pantry from our grocery list. Veggie straws. Remember, I got 3 young kids. Veggie straws. granola, rice rolls, tortilla chips, tortillas, granola bars, bread, bagels, mac and cheese, pea crisp, cauliflower straws, sweet potato chips, fruit bars, hippies, honey, maple syrup, cauliflower pizza crusts, rice noodles, English muffins, noodles, pasta, sweet potato fries, protein bars. I want to give you a really clear example here, the difference between these two lists. Notice I said pasta on both lists, but notice the difference. Traditional pasta, I would say, is a low nutrient density carb. It's natural. Pasta is a very natural food. Okay. It doesn't have to be processed or artificial, but traditional pasta is, relatively speaking, just sugar. Carbs basically get broken down for all intents and purposes into the same warehouse in your body as sugar, which is why you have to be careful with the amount of carbohydrates. However, chickpea pasta, I would argue, is a high nutrient density carbohydrate. There are more micronutrients in chickpea pasta than in regular pasta. Also, I am going to give you a quick tip on carbs. This is my high dollar quick tip on carbs. You ready for this? What is the easiest way to tell if a carbohydrate is high density or low density? Nutrient density, that is. Can you guess it? I feel like I'm a teacher right now. Can you take a guess? Raise your hand. I'm just kidding. Don't raise your hand. Somebody might think you're going crazy. Okay. The biggest difference is this. A tip on knowing the difference between high nutrient density and low nutrient density carbs is fiber. Fiber content. If you are questioning, you are looking at two options, they're both carbs, and you're wondering which should I prioritize, prioritize the one that is higher in fiber. Fiber, yes, it is a carbohydrate, but it is broken down differently by the body. And to make it very simple, it is not quite seen the same as a non-fibrous carb, where you get more concerned about blood sugar and how it's converting into glucose. That was a really poor explanation, but I don't need to get overly technical with this. The bottom line is that fiber is seen a little differently by the body in a positive way. So high nutrient density carbs tend to be higher in fiber. This is in fact why in my program, when we calculate the macronutrient of carbohydrates, we actually calculate total net carbs, which is total carbs minus fiber. We take fiber out of the equation. If it's a fibrous carbohydrate, like the grams on the nutrient label say fiber, we take those out. So your total net carbs are carbs minus fiber. So prioritize carbs high in fiber. That's my high dollar one-liner there. Let's talk about fat, the macronutrient of fat. Fat, there's so many different ways that fat supports our body physiologically. As women, hormone function is a huge element. This is why some women, I've actually had clients do my program to gain weight, to gain fat. And the reason is because women actually need a certain body fat percentage in order to have optimal hormone function. So fat is very important. Now you have to be careful. And I won't go into this here. This is a different podcast for a different time. You can eat too much fat, even too much healthy fat. Fat is still fat, which is why we need to track it carefully and understand how our fat is breaking down. This is the macronutrient people tend to eat too much of, myself included. So just be careful with fat. But it is also the second energy source for the body after carbs. When carbs are depleted, fat is our next energy source. Fat is also very important. So there is such a thing as healthy fats. You might recognize these as being called omega-3 fatty acids. And I do recommend that you prioritize food that are high in omega-3 fatty acids. I have some exciting news for you. These lists that I'm reading, these macro food lists, they are available on the show notes as a printout. They're available on my blog at hammersandhugs.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, they're available down here. Follow the finger. It sounded weirder after I said that, but basically in the show notes description here on the video, there is also a link to the show notes on my blog at hammersandhugs.com, and you can print out these food lists. Okay. On the fat food list, I have an asterisk beside the foods that are higher in omega-3 fatty acids. You want to prioritize these foods. All right, but all of these are still good sources of fat. Walnuts, butter, tuna, protein powder. P.S. Our favorite protein powder is Orgain. I am an affiliate of that program. I need to disclose that. I love Orgain powder. That is what we use in our house. Extra virgin olive oil, canola oil, chia pudding. I cannot get my head around chia pudding, you guys. I have tried. I have had clients, bless their heart, they have sent me their recipes. I don't know. I can't do it. I try. I'm continuing to try. It's tough. Chia pudding. Listen, if you're listening to this and you have a really good chia pudding recipe, send it my way. It is a micronutrient dense powerhouse. I should like it. I'm having a hard time though. Flaxseed, hemp heart, salmon, chia seeds, eggs, beef sticks, ground beef, bacon, beef sausages, pork sausages, chicken sausages. We eat a lot of chicken sausages in our house. Oftentimes they can be relatively lean. Some are higher in fat. Guacamole, pistachios, yogurt, almond butter, peanut butter, cashews, pecans, almonds, olive oils, mayonnaise. There's others. These are just ones that, obviously they can cross more than one macronutrient, by the way. Let's talk about the third one, protein. My personal, very favorite macronutrient. Protein is the key to sustainable fat loss. If I were to break it down to one food or food group in this case, it is protein. Just as we generally consume too much fat, a common trend that I've seen among my clients is we do not consume enough protein, specifically lean protein. Protein is the building block for muscle and the support system your body needs to function and function well. Protein is key. One of the best reasons to track macronutrients, even if you are already fit and a healthy body fat percentage, is it is an education in the food trends of your day-to-day life. When I first tracked macronutrients, this was years ago, maybe shortly after I started intermittent fasting. I actually don't remember. Tracked food for the first time in my life. I was shocked how much fat I was consuming and how little protein I was consuming. And I love protein. I like to call myself a meatitarian. It's quite accurate. I love my protein. And yet I was shocked how little I was still consuming. So we want lean protein. Those of you who have high cholesterol in the family, be aware of your risk factors. Another podcast for another day, but know your risk factors because it should and will guide your food choices. For me, high cholesterol is something I have to be very, very careful of. Breaking it down even further into your high cholesterol, mine is my LDL. We have a genetic predisposition to heart disease in my family. Again, another podcast for another day. Truly another podcast for another day. I could talk about that for a long time, but I have to watch my saturated fats, even though I'm a healthy body fat percentage. In fact, I lean towards the lean body fat percentage category, but I still have to watch my saturated fats. So know your risk factors. When I talk protein is key, I am not giving you license to eat a burger every meal. All right. You still need to understand the importance of the food that you're consuming, even within these macronutrients. So lean protein really is key. I'm going to give you a whole list here. A lot of these are also perfect for my vegan, vegetarian clients. All right. Or for those of you listening. Here we go. Also a quick tip. If you have not listened to my whole food nutrition podcast or read the blog post, you want to prioritize meat that has no added hormones or preservatives. Doesn't have to be organic. Organic is the easy button, but otherwise no added hormones or preservatives, please, for your sake. All right, here we go. Ground turkey, chicken breast, chicken thighs, pork tenderloin, pork chops, bacon, ground beef, roast beef, flank steak, shrimp, tuna, mahi-mahi, salmon, cod, ham, deli meat, tofu, eggs, protein powder, black beans, chickpeas, flaxseed, almonds, cashews, hemp hearts, collagen peptides, hummus, chicken sausage, beef sausage, pork sausage, chia pudding. There's that chia pudding again. Gotta get it. Apples, beef jerky, beef sticks, chicken burgers. Oh, I have chicken burgers on there twice. Huh. Apparently we love our chicken burgers. Well, for those of you that print off these food lists, you'll have chicken burgers on it twice. Salami, quinoa, rolled oats, peanut butter, almond butter, I mean, the list goes on and on. The idea is you want to prioritize protein, lean protein specifically. These cheat sheets are available, these food lists, as I mentioned, to help you prioritize your pantry. Fat loss is not just about calories in and calories out. Fat loss is not just about calories in and calories out. You guys all know how I feel about weight loss. I hate to even use the term because weight and the number on a scale is a terrible reflection of your overall health or even your fitness and nutrition goals. Podcast coming on that as well. I'm all about body fat percentage for so many reasons. We're going to talk about it, how to measure it at home. So many good things coming. But weight loss, fat loss, it is not just about calories in and calories out. Fat loss happens when you mindfully fuel your body with the right food at the right time for the right reasons. Muscle gain happens when you strengthen your body with the right exercise as well as fueling it with the right foods. Simply put, fat loss happens in the kitchen. Muscle tone happens in the gym. Fat loss happens in the kitchen. Muscle gain or muscle tone happens in the gym, primarily. That is simplifying a very complicated process, but I want you to understand nutrition is 90% of the fat loss pie chart. It is 90% of living well, and tracking macronutrients is a more efficient way of accomplishing that goal. So we understand that calories alone are not enough, right? We have this nutritional pyramid, this nutrition for fat loss pyramid. Calories make up the base. My clients, when they come into my program, we use a formula, people, not just, well, this is what I want to weigh. So this is how many calories I need to consume. No. Forget that. There's going to be a formula that we use to calculate the amount of calories that your body requires based on your activity level, your age, your gender, your current body density, etc. The total caloric intake is important. Yes, that is the base. But then we need to determine how many macronutrients should be broken down within that total caloric need or requirement. That means a certain percentage of carbs, fats, and proteins. We determine that and we come up with a specific personalized gram goal. So you need X amount of grams of fat a day. You need X amount of grams of protein a day. This is where programs come in. You can certainly start tracking your food. I think it is a great education, but the problem is if you don't know how to interpret what you're tracking, it's very difficult and can just feel overwhelming because tracking food is like a full-time job. I always tell my clients, tracking food is not the end goal. It's an education. It's a temporary goal. We do it temporarily to recognize food trends so that you can start understanding why you're eating what you're eating. So the bottom line is this. In my fitness nutrition program, we learn how to eat the right foods at the right time for the right reasons. I would love to have you join my program. There's a lot of other good programs out there. Make sure they account for macronutrients, not just count calories. I think that is the most optimal way of going about it. You can click on the link, certainly in the show notes, to see when my next round starts of the Fast Rate of Fat Loss with Anna. I would love to coach you through your own fitness nutrition journey. We need to retrain our minds to think differently about food. Quit counting calories to deprive yourself of food and start tracking macronutrients to fuel yourself with the essential life-giving micronutrients, because ultimately food was meant to be enjoyed. I will see you next time here on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Imperfectly Empowered podcast. It is my honor to be here with you. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button below so you don't miss a show, and leave a comment with your thoughts from today's episode below. If you are listening via your preferred podcasting platform, would you help keep us on the air by rating our show and leaving an honest review of your thoughts from today? In case you haven't heard it lately, your story matters and you are loved. This is your host, Ahnafulmer, and I will see you here next time on the Imperfectly Empowered podcast.